Welcome everybody. I think you've seen the others, so hopefully you noticed the structure, so we'll go straight into it. Florian, throw it up. And so our first proposition is we have ignored the vital role of social structures in creating gender and the building the inequalities based on that division. Okay, so, oh, crikey, right, that's okay. I'm going to just quickly go with that. Then Mark, do you agree or disagree? Go on.
I'll agree.
Bettina?
I disagree.
You disagree, okay. Bram?
I think I agree.
You think you agree?
But it's
okay.
rather phrased rather funnily, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's on
Douwe?
I disagree as well.
You disagree as well? Excellent. Okay. Second proposition, please, Florian. Farmers' agency, yes, fine, but ultimately it's all about the capitalist structures they are entangled in. Okay, we've got to go big political economy before we go home, haven't we? Come on. So let's start off with Bettina, yes or no?
No.
No. Bram?
Of course, yes.
Mark?
That's right.
It's a hard agree for me.
Yes. Okay. And Douwe?
Okay, yes.
Okay, this is now we're shaping up. You see, you've got to get to these big questions before we get to lunch. Or we could just keep going and everybody get really hungry and then they get really fractious. And then we could see some debate. Okay, and then the final one. The agency structure debate is endless and unproductive. Okay, it's the disagrees are going really fast. They're fast on their phones, the disagrees. Okay, so, Mark, where are you with this?
I'll disagree.
You'll disagree? Bram?
I agree with Mark to disagree.
Yeah, okay, I can see it's... I should have separated you two. There's some sort of bromance or something breaking out. Bettina,
I agree.
you agree? Okay, and Douwe?
Disagree.
Disagree. Okay, fantastic. Where are we with the voting? Okay, fantastic. Well, let's start with something that we got some dispute over. Let's go to this farmer agency question. Yes, fine, but ultimately it's all about the capitalist structures they are entangled in. I think Mark went hard yes. Yeah, go. Give us a minute on hard yes. Don't worry about the crowd.
I'm just wondering if I need to convince the audience.
No, just...
that Marx was right all along.
If you try and convince me, they may follow.
Well, yes. I guess the way I approach this as a question is that both matter. Agency and structure both matter. But I think the danger is over-privileging agency, because I think in my work, what I would characterise my work as doing is trying to progress an everyday political economy of rural livelihoods. But I think it's those political economic structures that are ultimately determining in sort of a long historical trajectory of the fortunes of different rural classes.
Pithy. That's great. Now, Bettina, I think you were the dissenting voice here.
I was the dissenting voice all the way through.
Okay, well, that's good. That's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for, yeah.
Yeah, come on.
I think Douwe already gave some beautiful examples of farmers doing what they want to do, farm men and farm women. And there are lots of people who do what they do despite of capitalist structures. But I think we will come back to that when we talk about structure and agency. What is more interesting, and that is what we tend to overlook if we focus on capitalism, is that there are novel collective practices appearing which are changing the game. Maybe slowly, maybe step by step, but going right across this idea of individual farmers, capitalist retailers, but doing something different, connecting, also drawing different relations. And I think that is interesting, and that it's something new that is worth looking at, and that's why I disagree.
Okay, can you give us some examples of those collective practices so we can just ground what you...
One of the things I find really, really interesting, and I plan to talk about them later, but it's this idea of land owning. So we have this Land van ons. There are different forms of associations where you can buy pieces of land as a private person, and together you generate a lot of land that can be used in a different way. So you can give it to particular farmers, to do particular practices. You can also try, that's what I tried, to block the selling of land to big data centers. So it's small yet. Somebody told me it's like a postzegel. What's a postzegel in? Like a stamp. But a lot of stamps is a lot of land.
Yeah.
So I think the idea is really revolutionary. It's a novel practice beyond capitalism, unless you say ownership of land is capitalist in itself.
That's what Bram's saying, he's just nodding.
Maybe read with me.
So, no, come on, Bram, you were disagreeing with Bettina there, so let's nail this down for you. Why was yours a yes to farmer agency?
Well, I do fully agree with that point, right? That there are practices that try to do things differently. And these postage stamps make a difference. They can make a difference, and they do make a difference. But why I was quite emphatic in terms of saying yes to the statement is that I think we've come to a point, of 600 years of capitalism, that where it's really endangering, the planet to a degree that historically we've not seen before, right? On a really planetary scale. And that has been building up over centuries. And of course, in and through that, people have always had agency, right? It didn't come out of nothing. It came out of the agency of capitalists that fulfilled particular roles. But as this social structure, right, it really depends on a very core sort of dynamic, putting forth money in order to make more of it. The definition of capital, right, is taking more time and becoming bigger and more intense. I think the problem is becoming bigger and bigger. And so for me, I would like to restate the statement that, of course, actor and structure are both important, but it's the intensification of both in this particular era that is the problem, right? We have a lot of agency we think we have a lot of agency, we can do a lot of things, although some people, of course, are very constrained in terms of their agency, but many of us, at least here, do have a lot of agency. But at the same time, over the last 600 years, those capitalist structures have also become harsher, firmer, more flexible, using our agency in ways that we sometimes don't even realize, right, under Facebook platform type crazy models. And I think that is the danger, and the danger for this time.
Okay, thank you. Jan Douwe, you were...
Yes, two observations. I will be brief. I do not believe that the two, structure and agency, have intensified alongside each other. The world is lacking now. The civil societies seem to be impotent. Where are the responses in these dramatic times? And yes, capital is destructive in this era, but why should sociology generally, or rural sociology in particular, overstress time and again the importance of politico-economic forces? I mean, of course, it is to be part of your intellectual luggage to be able to make a good politico-economic analysis, to make a good class analysis, but then I find it myself boring to be time and again to be remembered on capital and how capital this and how capital that, and come on, we have better things to do.
Okay, that's... Look at that, a spontaneous round of applause. So after slaying the geographers in the last round and we brought unity, we get bored by these Marxist arguments. So it's also inspired with a round of applause. So we're just here to wind you up, Bram. Don't worry.
It's succeeding.
Yeah, well, I can tell. It's good. It's good. So let's go to something else that's bound to not lead to people's pulses racing. That first question, we have ignored the vital role of social structures in creating gender and building inequalities. Again, we had some disagreement. So Bettina, you said that we haven't been ignoring the role of gender.
We talked about it all the time. There are tons of research pointing at the importance of structure, excluding people from resources, excluding people from decision making, excluding people, women, minority groups. Women are not a minority group, by the way, maybe here, but not in general.
Yeah. Accepted. Yeah.
So we know that. Don't think that we neglected that. I think it's more interesting how to change.
Okay, so do you want to talk a little bit about how to change?
Then we can talk about agency, but my problem about agency is very often it becomes very individualistic and about people in themselves being able to change things, whereas I think the change is in the end in changing relations, changing practices, making collective changes, and also changing ideas. So, and that all is very difficult to separate. And it's not just structure here and agency. We also make structures and we can change structures.
Great.
And that's the most interesting thing, I think.
Thank you. So Jan Douwe, you were agreeing with Bettina. Do you want to add to any of those points, or are you content there before I move?
No, I have the feeling, I mean, indeed, a lot of work has been done, and in our group, a lot of important work has been done by Bettina, by Sabine de Rooij, by Monica, who I met here, Flavia, who's sitting here from Brazil, Flaminia from Italy. A lot of very good work on gender has been done, and this has been important more generally for gender approaches. And it came in time. Before that it was neglected, but nowadays, and they still have a struggle ahead to go ahead, just as the others, but no, I cannot possibly agree with this statement.
Okay, that's great. That's really exciting, because I think the majority are with Mark and Bram on that we have been ignoring it. So Mark or Bram, do you want to speak to this, either one of you? Mark, you just...
Now that I look at the statement again, I'm not sure.
You can change your mind.
You can change your mind. Other people have. It's okay.
But I think we covered this in the previous panels in the discussions about the importance of intersectionality, that people have multiple identities in rural places, and we need to account for all those different identities or types of relations that people have, including gender. I think structure is important for me, and I have to say, I think thinking about capitalism and political economy is anything but boring. I disagree with you.
Stand up for it, come on.
And I think that the reason that it's not boring is because I think we need a strong theory of historical change. And I find in more agency-focused approaches, we lack a theory of what drives change over long-term historical periods. I'm not talking about gender now. And so for me, that's the importance of a structuralist approach.
So this kind of comes to the question about, I guess, that maybe Bram was sneaking towards, that we've got an intensification. The planet is literally on fire. The seas are rising. The temperature's getting warmer. Elon Musk seems to be taking over everything. This is like capitalism on steroids. We are waiting for the contradictions. We are waiting for the people to rise up and seize, and we haven't seen them. So are we just doomed in these kind of contradictions that capitalism is going to overwhelm itself because of these structural factors? Or where does the agency fit in? That's I'm waiting for that moment of hope from you structuralists.
But there is a lot of agency, so otherwise we can all go home and jump off the roof.
I might be with you, but I'm just looking at Mark and Bram as my straw men defending structure.
I wouldn't speak for Bram, but I don't think neither Bram or I would also deny agency either.
Absolutely not. No, of course not. But I think, like I said, I think we've moved past this debate. And perhaps I see other differentialities here as well, besides gender. Maybe also a little bit of an age difference or a generational difference. I think, it was logical in the 1980s, 1990s that some people, in this table maybe grew up intellectually to resist particular types of structuralist ideas. That was totally just. But look, if you don't think that studying capital is not just, I mean, exciting, but in a frightening way. If you think it's boring, you're not doing your job right, because capital at this point in time is anything but boring. It's super frighteningly, excitingly interesting in a way that is destroying the planet. And if you don't focus on that, that's another matter. But I think that's what's at stake here. I mean, you can focus on the agency, on what's going on, that's great. But I have also studied people that do try to make a difference, right? And at the same time they say, oh yes, Twitter and Facebook is helping us. No, it's not, right? So because they don't study capital anymore and the way capital is changing, they get stuck in a position where they think that people, you know, doing all kinds of things around agency can make a big difference, where perhaps maybe they don't and actually make the problem worse. So, so I think there's a big difference there.
Come on, Jan Douwe,
generation
jump in.
difference.
And then, well, Bettina was going to jump in.
I was wondering what then. So we study capitalism and capital and say it's horrible and it's intensifying, and then where is
revolution?
But so it makes a difference who
I wrote a
owns
whole book about it, and people do that. We need agency to do the
and
revolution.
who says that then capital will be used in a different way? Because we have seen many people, also socialist capitalism is destroying the earth.
Yeah, but they're also capitalists, right? If you say socialist capitalist, you know, I think we need to move
capitalist
beyond.
is private property, isn't it? And socialist capital.
No, I don't think so. No, it's also
Okay.
relational. I think capital is a relation. It's a
But
process.
then it's about then it's about how to use capital, not who owns the capital.
No,
Is it?
I think capital is the problem, not capitalism.
Oh. And do we have something which is not capital?
Yeah.
What is that then?
If you don't put forth money in order to make more money, you're not vested in the process of capital. And there are a lot of people actually doing that. But the overriding tendency for many structural dynamics, and why every second word of every politician is growth, 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 is because they want to push for this kind of processual approach, you know, and it's also very relational, that is geared towards capital. And that is the problem.
Lovely. I'm just thinking, in our sociology word bingo, we've got to revolution finally. So that's we're getting there. Jan Douwe, did you want to respond?
I think it's absolutely false contradiction. There is hardly anybody in this room who is only focusing on individuals. It's we all know about capital. We all study capital, and most of us are interested in developing responses to it. Now, so this is the first consideration. The second consideration is that we are beyond old-fashioned Leninist type of revolution. Yeah, that would be the most bloody mistake you can make. Well, still some people are making this mistake, sorry, but they have the right to do so. But the way forward is in what John Holloway beautifully described in his Changing the World Without Seizing Power. Yeah, the way forward is in changing, growing parts of the domains in which we are producing, living, working together, and developing alternatives, linking these alternatives, and in that way, and that is also what the big social movements at the moment are doing.
Come on, Jan Douwe, we're not living in the hippie area anymore. We're not flower powers. We need to also deal with power. We need to also not be afraid of power and use power in the right ways.
But we're still
not
using power. It's capital is not the only power that is there.
I'm just going to hold you here a moment.
Yeah,
just
well,
give
we're
Mark
going
a chance, or he might just be sat there quietly thinking, God, don't ask me, Matt.
I feel like a lamb amongst three
I was gonna say,
intellectual ones.
if you just want to sit this one out, brother, you just go ahead. But, you know, this is your moment if you want it.
You're the young generation. You should do it.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree with
All of us.
Yeah. I think what's important, though, is it's about our analytical categories that we view the world through as well. And we recently we've engaged in a debate in a special issue on peasant autonomy recently, and whether autonomy is a good analytical category through which to understand the rural development, I guess. And where I think Bram's and perhaps my perspective is important is that we need to connect also what's happening, the peasants strive for autonomy, that's great, and I think understanding practices is really important, and farming styles and all these things that arise out of the grassroots. But we need to connect that to broader historical struggles. We need to connect that to the struggles of working classes in the cities, or we need to, I think we need structural theories to help us do that. And again, I think we're all making a bit of a caricature of each other.
Yeah. No, let's cut to it, because otherwise, we could be here for decades, and we have been. So let's not. But I mean, my difficulty is I hear Bram like, trust me, this revolution's going to be different, and I'm thinking, oh, this is the revolution without the secret policemen, the execution squads, the barbed wire. What revolution would that be? That's my internal kind of cynic and historic critic. Every revolutionary I've ever met has told me that their revolution is going to be different. And every revolution I've seen has involved secret policemen, executions, and barbed wire. And, now, Bram, you may prove me wrong. Your revolution may be the one that's different. But how do you make sure that I want to deal with power, I'm happy to deal with power, let's get our hands on it, doesn't become that kind of nightmare that we saw through much of the 20th century? How is your revolution going to be different?
Yeah, I mean, analytically, I would also distinguish, the real world so-called revolutions that we've seen in the 20th century, because obviously I think those were absolutely ridiculous, right? And that kind of power is something I'm completely against, and that I find abhorrent. Yet at the same time, if you will, you can call the rise of capitalism a revolution, right? It's a particular form of historical change that has gone with a tremendous amount of violence, right? Primitive accumulation, you name it, colonialism, imperialism, racist imperialism. I mean, it's been horrible. And so here we are at this point in time, where we are living on a particular sort of system. I don't think we all deny that we live in a capitalist sort of world. And yet we need to move beyond it. That, for me, is the revolution. The revolution is that we need to move in one way or another beyond it. Now, why can't we? So why can we look at the agency of great, initiatives and say, oh no, these are great, fantastic, etc. Why can't we look at these things in a bigger scale, and also in one way or another, right? And by looking at power in a more creative way, finding ourselves saying, hey, let's find ways to not do these mistakes of the recent past, that I actually don't think were truly revolutionary in any event, but literally start from the basis of post-capitalism, right? Do not invest money or resources just for the sake of more of it, but to make people happy, to create gender equality, to actually help people move beyond, racist differences that we see every day, and to create sort of a basic and valuable level of life for at least, hopefully all, but the majority of the people on the planet. But I mean, I think maybe, okay, I feel very John Lennon here, calling, etc. But yeah, I'd like to believe in that. I have a young daughter of 9 years old, and I want to damn well fight for her, because if I just don't think...
But I mean, my difficulty is you just accuse Jan Douwe of being somewhere in the hippie era.
I think
you've just like put on a caftan and tied flowers in your hair, man.
Yeah, so I think revolutionaries may look a little bit more like this now, like Jan Douwe the same. So I see Jan Douwe as a revolutionary, right? But we may have some of the aims, and we can still learn from those times. I very much still agree with that. But the times now are different, and the structures that we fight against are also different. And we need to reinvent the wheel. So that's why I earlier said immediately that the kind of movements that many people in RSO, SEC are pointing at, and that Bettina actually highlighted, are critically important.
They are post-capitalist. They are a step in that direction.
I mean, again, that's an empirical question. If they are post-capitalist, great, and they are critically important.
And they might lead to a bigger change.
And
I think the danger is to wait for the change to happen from the big revolution. No, I think we need to do it.
I agree.
Well, that's a good moment to stop, whilst we agree. That rare moment, we'll just pause there, because Abigail's been waving paper at me, like she's like basically set fire to it, like, Matt, try and get them to stop. So Thank you very much indeed. That was great fun. Thank you very much for your great humour in taking that on. We really enjoyed it. So thank you very much, everybody. A quick round of applause for this panel.